Hi and welcome everybody. I'm Dr. Katherine Horton. I would like to report about the biggest news, but before I do, let me just check the audio. Okay, so today is special. Just a second. This is a completely new laptop. But before I do, let me just... Okay, excellent. So it sounds like you guys can hear me fine. Now, the reason why I have to... okay, first of all, apologies, okay, because there's a lot of things that are a bit up in the air today. All right, so now let me get back to you. Okay, so let me explain. First of all, I apologize about my looks. I'm not wearing any makeup because I want you to see just the number of newest wounds I have on my forehead because I was gunned all throughout the car journey. So that is, you know, big beams like the one that left this half circle here on my forehead, which you can sometimes see if the, you know, I don't have these bright lights on me, much better. But also there are these pencil beams that are drilled into my head nonstop. And you can, we know from the wounds, you can just about see where they're aiming, you know, in my head. So they want to really just lobotomize me with a total frontal lobotomy. So anyway, that's the biggest news. So apologies about that. The other thing I want to apologize right now, I am on a completely new laptop because mine was trashed completely, so that it's utterly unusable last week. This is a brand new laptop that I just bought a day and a half ago, and I just brought it home. And today I'm using it actually for the first time properly because yesterday I just set it up, and now I discovered that the fan, for inexplicable reasons, starts howling intermittently in a way that is unpredictable and is not really justified because it's a brand new laptop. And most of the time, this laptop operates in complete silence, apart from when the fan starts howling, you know, in between. So I apologize. I have to take this machine right back. But today I have to do the broadcast with this equipment being a bit bashed up. At this point, I also would like to say thank you to all of the people who support me financially, you know, with a monthly monthly donation over Patreon, because that is the only way I could even afford getting a new laptop after, you know, GCHQ and NSA trashed my last laptop. And I'll go into great detail how I know it was NSA or GCHQ. They're the same organization, really. But I'll explain. But before I do, I have such a long list. Today I had to actually write everything down in one big long list. So let me take it step by step. First of all, hi guys, and welcome back. I'm very sorry that I wasn't broadcasting for the last 2 weeks. That's because I was in hiding in exile. I was actually staying in Croatia. I didn't specify the country beforehand. I just said somewhere in the Balkans. But I stayed in Croatia, and I actually fled there following an invite to stay at a home, you know, over family. And I went there after the attacks on me in Switzerland became so severe that I couldn't actually last any longer in my own home. So I traveled to Croatia, and I drove down, I actually drove through the Gotthard Tunnel, you know, the famous Gotthard Tunnel that was, you know, opened with the satanic ritual. That was actually for the train line. But, you know, I drove through there down to Italy, and I stayed overnight in Trieste in Italy on the east coast of the Mediterranean, you know, around Italy. And there it took exactly 20 minutes where I felt perfectly fine in the bed and breakfast I was staying in. But after 20 minutes, I started being gunned from satellite. And this time I'm pretty sure it was satellite because the shots were coming from above. And I was literally on a cliff face. So it was a hill, and I don't think I was gunned from above me. I'm pretty sure it was satellites. But it took 20 minutes to hone in on me in my room. And they do the same thing every single time. They start hitting the walls, causing a massive impact sound in the walls, and they go around me systematically. So the pattern changes. Sometimes they shoot at the wall in front of me, then behind, and left and right, and eventually in my head. Or they start and they go around with the walls in circle, and then they shoot me in the head. But there's this kind of like serial killer, sadistic game that the Space Command are doing when they're gunning a room. And that is pretty constant. And another thing you need to know, because a lot of victims have reported that to me, and I certainly experienced the same thing, they also mark for you, that they can see you wherever you go by hitting the walls, or maybe a metal object like a central heating unit next to you if you walk into a new room. So with me, if I'm, in my study, they will hit the walls of the study. If I go to bed, they hit the wall just next to my bed. If I go to the bathroom, they will literally hit the bathroom wall, or they will hit some object inside the room, causing a loud bang. And then shortly thereafter, I'm hit in the skull. And that's kind of like to try to get you into a stress state where, it's kind of conditioning, it's like Pavlovian conditioning with the dog and the bell. So the shot into the wall is meant to be the bell, and you're meant to be put into a stress state, and the next thing is you're going to be shot in the skull. And they literally try, and they have tried for ages, to condition me to get into a stress state. Now, the way to counter that, because I know that a lot of you are going through the same thing, you have to break the conditioning. It means that if, they hit the wall and you hear the impact, you have to do something that you don't get into the state that they want you to be in. So they either, typically, I would guess that they would want you in a highly stressed state. Your cortisol level is meant to rise. You're meant to feel, very put upon and impacted and terrified and all this sort of stuff. But know that this is just Pavlovian conditioning that they're trying on you. And you have to break the game. You have to break this, pathetic attempt by these serial killers. So the way to do that is to just, you decide what the reaction the bell will induce. So for those who don't know, Pavlovian conditioning by the scientist Pavlov, who had a dog, was that he was trying to show that you can even control bodily reactions like salivation in a dog, and also in humans, in any living being, by having a conditioning program executed on the experimentation subject, and by introducing a cue. So the cue in the case of the dog was the bell. So he conditioned his dog to expect food every single time he rang the bell. So he would ring the bell, and then he would serve food to his dog. And eventually he realized that he would just, ring the bell, and the dog would start salivating. Now, I'm pretty sure he had a dog that's salivating all over the show, right? Like some dogs do, because in most dogs, you couldn't really tell if they're salivating. So anyway, that's as a footnote. But that is just, the pattern, and it doesn't just apply to salivation. It could be anything. And the point is that salivation is not something that we consciously steer. So it is trying to use conditioning to program your body and all those functions in your body that you can't consciously control. And typically emotions, reactive emotions, and other things like heart rate and pulse and cortisol level are, part of that. So cortisol, having a very high cortisol level over long periods of time, is known to be very detrimental to your health. So it is also part of the silent kill, okay? So this is not a game. This shouldn't be misunderstood as idiots just playing around. No, this is something that is actively trying to damage your health, to kill you eventually with heart disease or something, okay? So it is another slow kill method, but to protect yourself against that is to realize, okay, we're dealing with Pavlovian conditioning here. We're also dealing with a bunch of psychopathic nut jobs, but you can break this by just having an arsenal of reactions that you decide you want to take, and you want to condition yourself to have a different reaction every single time that completely counters their activities. One idea is to crack a joke about these tossers every single time they slam something into the wall. You could start with curses, but that makes you really aggressive and puts you in an aggressive state, which could be a good thing. If you're somebody who's suffering from learned helplessness and low energy levels, aggression is a high energy level. It's actually a good thing. It gets you going. So then you could start cursing and telling them that they're a bunch of fuckers or something. And then you would condition yourself to be in an active and aggressive state every time they hit the wall. If you are in a low energy state and you're suffering from depression or helplessness and lethargy or just general tiredness, that's a good thing. If you're, on the other hand, suffering from high levels of stress, then you need something that diffuses that. So in other words, what you want to do is you want to use their games and try to condition yourself using that cue to do something else completely that's maybe really good for you. And then the more shit they pull, the better for you. This is how you beat these people, okay? So, for example, you could condition yourself to always make a, snide remark, a sarcastic joke, or something that's actually really amusing, okay? So, sorry, the computer just started to howl, and now it went away. Okay, so for example, you just crack a joke at their expense every single time. And laughter is very good in getting you from a high energy state that could be aggression, or it could be very tense fear. And immediately, through essentially your stomach muscles, just get rid of all that energy in a really quick fashion and convert all that energy into effectively relaxation. So typically when people crack a joke and everybody laughs, afterwards, people are a lot more relaxed. Okay, so that's the trick. I just wanted to say that because, it just goes on like that. So anyway, I wanted to tell you how I fled to Croatia and I started gunning the walls. Okay, so I started cracking my personal jokes at them, which was very funny. But then the next day I traveled on to Croatia, which is still part of NATO. And then throughout the 3 weeks I was there, 2.5 or however long that was, the gunning was continuous. Okay. So now I have been gunned in all countries of Western Europe. I have been gunned in Central Europe and Eastern Europe, and now all the way down to the Balkans. So I have been, so far, this is kind of important for the court cases, okay? This is why I'm saying it. So now I can, in my testimony, say, and I've also got the audio recordings to prove that I have been gunned in NATO countries, and several of them, and in Switzerland, which isn't actually NATO on paper, but it's actually really NATO because, for example, at 5 o'clock when the entire Swiss Air Force fucks off home, you have the surrounding countries take off, for example, air defense shifts and stuff like that. And there was a precedent somewhere in the news where, I don't know, something entered, Swiss airspace, and I can't remember who caught them. I think it was maybe the Slovakians, but somebody else was defending Swiss airspace because these tossers just fucked off home, right? I mean, I guess that's what you expect to do if you are the guardians of the Vatican vaults, right? You're the top dogs, so you can have your bitches take care of you. But anyway, so there are all these little hints that tell us how the organized crime architecture is actually built up, how it is actually functioning, okay? So there is the official side, which is what the media tells us, who are all a bunch of criminals, right? And then there's the government side with government agreements and, treaties and all this sort of stuff. And then there's the day-to-day, how the shit is actually going down, okay? And what we care about is how it's actually working. And in actual fact, Switzerland is not just NATO, it is pretty much the freaking tip of NATO, because this is where the cartel is headquartered, or has been traditionally, right? Before it started moving off to the Himalayas. But this is how it works, and this is how you can tell. So now I can publicly here state that I too can confirm and say under oath that I was gunned in a bunch of NATO countries in Switzerland. Okay, I haven't left Europe yet, ever in my life, right? Dwarf girl, like village girl here, So I have never actually left this continent, but I can confirm that on the European continent, the satellite gunning goes everywhere, which means automatically that the people who are ultimately responsible for my gunning are above the Croatian military, are above the German, the British, and all these national militaries. In other words, it is the NATO leadership. And more precisely, it is the NATO Space Command who is in charge of my gunning, okay? Now, this is really, really good. When you have accumulated this evidence, okay, you have a culprit. You have somebody who you can get in court. Now, let me just show you. Let me just bring up the NATO Space Command, okay? Sorry, there's a lot of stuff to go through today, and I'm trying to be quick. I thought I had brought up everything in time, but sometimes there are gaps. Okay, so the NATO Space Command. Now, let me just show you how you can get there. Let me share my screen. And this is important for everybody in the US and also Europe, because you are all NATO. And because, also Switzerland is part of it, all the Swiss Victims also have to look at this. So please go to your favorite search engine and type NATO Space Command, and then you will get through to this page here, okay? This is the NATO Space Command, and it also explains how they are set up, okay? Now, what I want to go is I want to go to leadership, okay? Now, if you go to leadership, you can find the criminals right there. And it's very convenient to have the internet and have these mugshots because you can identify the fuckers. Now, what you need to know, I've already showed you the NATO site, and I've explained how you have got the occult signaling with NATO being mirrored, and that has nothing to do with the French way of writing it, okay? So don't be fooled, because frankly, NATO doesn't give a shit about the French, right? So why would they change that? So this is actually really occult signaling. The NATO cross is actually derived from the swastika, okay? So you can build a swastika out of those parts. But also you have the snake, okay? The snake here, and this dagger in the logo on the right-hand side, right? With the little NATO, you know, ninja star lookalike up there. But these double lines, that's the Vatican snake, okay? So you can immediately see who you're dealing with. And this is precisely the point of cartel signaling, so that cartel insiders just can look at this and at a glance know what they're dealing with, okay? And the other thing you need to know, which is comes from the education provided to us by Sean Ross, is that the color blue is traditionally the pharaonic war color. So remember the pharaohs, right? And this whole bloody cartel goes back to the pharaohs, because those you know, dictators and criminal bastards have never really, you know, let go of the planet. The Roman Empire was just a continuation of the same structure and so on. But so it goes back to these, you know, pharaohs, and there were two kingdoms, the Upper and the Lower Nile. Now, one had the crown in the color red, the other one in the color white. This is from Sean Ross, okay? And I forget which is which. Is it the Upper Nile that was red or white? It's always the other way around. So anyway, it doesn't matter. But when these two kingdoms went to war, there was always a war crown, which apparently was blue, okay? And Sean Ross says this is why the blue helmets, you know, the UN blue helmets are blue. And this is why NATO is blue, okay? Because it's the war crown. It's to do with war. And this is what all this whole shebang of occult signaling comes from. And occult just means hidden, okay? This is the hidden signaling. And it has been hidden from us because what this ruling crime cartel wants to hide, it's continuation and continued existence. They want us to forget about them. They don't want us to look into white-collar crime and organized crime and actually realize that they're all one gang, okay? That's why they hide themselves. Now, if you go back to the NATO Space Command and you're dealing with severe criminality, you expect this occult signaling, this hidden signaling, and there it is. You've got the swastika, the blue war crown, you've got the occult signaling of everything is actually reverse, right, spelled out right there, and you've got the Vatican snake on the right, okay? So all you need to know is right here. Now, you go down to these and you will notice that, and actually it's explained in the text, that the commander, okay, so the chief genocide operator is always assigned to a US Air Force 4-star general, right? Now, also as a footnote, the stars of these 4-star generals are pentagrams. So this guy has got 4 satanic pentagrams, this dude, okay? I don't want to know how many kids you have to slaughter to get your 4 stars in the satanic empire, but that aside. Now, if you're in Europe, it could be that you're, you know, phenomenally fucked because the US doesn't really cooperate with you when it's about the trial and the arrest of their US criminals wreaking havoc abroad. This has to be still cleared. Could we get a court-martial for this US general in Europe for machine gunning the European civilian population in contravention of the Geneva Conventions, right? Important point. If we can't, we should ask our American victim friends and American investigator colleagues to trial this motherfucker in the US, okay? But either way, What is good news is that you have these others, these air marshals, right, and these major generals who are local to Europe, okay? And it explains, right? So the commander is a US Air Force guy, right? Right. And then you have the position of the deputy commander and the chief of staff. They are assigned to France and the United Kingdom and the Federal Republic of Germany and Italy, respectively, on a rotational basis. Now, all of those we can get in court, okay? Every single one of those motherfuckers we can get in court for the satellite machine gunning of the European population. If you're in the US and you're wondering what the hell this has got to do with you, well, first of all, you can quote my testimony that you have one US 4-star general here machine gunning the European population. So you've got a war criminal right here. So when you want to go up against your own US Space Command, so let's search for the US Space Command, which is run by General Raymond. Okay, wow, these guys. Where is the jeez. How can we get to the actual link? We probably have to go over Wikipedia. Sorry. So this is the Space Command. You guys need to know this if you're in the US, okay? Also, if you're in Europe, you have to find these guys. Where's the link? Oh no, this isn't it. But anyway, I think you have to go through. Oh God. Space Command General Raymond. Okay, this guy here, Raymond. He is the guy who leads the US Space Command. Okay, so he is the war criminal who would be responsible for the mass murder of the Americans in California during the so-called wildfires. Okay. It wasn't really a wildfire. It was a dew-induced, extermination program. But he also, the U.S. Space Command at AFB Schriever is also in charge of all the satellites around the world. They seem to have supreme command, okay? So if you're in the US, you can flag this guy for your personal court case, and you can flag this guy as somebody who's also conducting a genocide, right, outside of the US, still for NATO, okay? So these are the war criminals who are responsible for this. If they weren't responsible, right, directly, it would be their personal, direct, and immediate responsibility to shut down the satellites who are gunning, or that are gunning, Americans and Europeans. It would literally be the top one thing on their to-do list if they get into the office at 9 o'clock in the morning, right? There's nothing else that is more important than the protection of the civilian population, which I remind everybody is the sole purpose why these motherfuckers are there and have a job. It is typically not to human traffic children, to butt-fuck young, handsome soldiers, right? Or be involved in global planetary terrorism. The only reason why they have a job is because they're there for the protection of the life and the security of the American and the European population, full stop. And if these people don't do that, or if they contravene that, it is a war crime. It is actually something for which they can get lawfully shot after a military tribunal has found them guilty. Okay, this is a very, very, very big deal. Okay, so I just want to make that absolutely clear and certain to everybody, because one of the things that I noticed is going on right now is that there's a lot of disinformation to turn on the fog machine and to hide the actual major criminals who are in charge of all this. And the major criminals who have the top, absolutely top responsibility for this are our top leaders in the military, the top leaders in military intelligence, and they need to get the shit sorted by midday. And if they don't, we need to get the court cases on them that can have them shot. And I absolutely mean that. And I mean that as a woman who has been shot in the head several times, not just per hour, per 15 minutes for 3 years straight. I have now taken so many headshots. It's time that we get a couple of headshots returned to the people who are doing this, right? So, of course, after lawful military tribunals and all that, but I'm absolutely serious. These guys need the death penalty because otherwise they don't seem to stop. They don't stop the human trafficking. They don't stop the mutilation and the torture of the civilian population with weapons that they have developed throughout the last 100 years. And that is the moment where the civilian population has not just a right, they have a freaking duty of self-defense and defending more vulnerable people like children, the elderly and disabled people who cannot defend themselves, right? So at this point, it is absolutely incumbent on every single person in a NATO territory to help me shut these motherfuckers down. Okay, and you don't have to take my word for this, for the satellite gunning. You can also get in touch with the many victims who are publicly there testifying on YouTube, on Facebook, on Twitter, and have done so for the last 20 years. Okay, so I just want you to know. So we're after these guys, right? So I was shot. I just wanted to say that I was shot. Then the other thing that was very interesting, I have to say, apart from the satellite gunning, Croatia was pretty tame. And I think that's because they didn't want to get into right the heat of this bullshit because they just had the Balkan Wars. So they're like, no thanks, no more bullshit for us. So all that happened is that I was actually on a ferry as I was, traveling throughout Croatia at some point. And on the ferry, you kind of leave your car downstairs and you go up, on the deck of the ship. Now, during that time, they broke into my car and they rearranged things in my car so that to make sure that I notice. And then, that was it. So that was relatively mild. The rest of the time, as far as I could tell, it was just a satellite gunning. So I was stalked all the way there, and that was the sort of harassment, right? But right now, the total assaults on me, and I just say it because I can testify about my own case, but I'm also 100% sure because I have the testimony from many, many other people who contact me that the attacks have gone absolutely much, much worse than they have ever been before. They started exploding roughly in summer or maybe late spring. So certainly for me, spring 2018, when I was writing the affidavit template. But then throughout summer and autumn, the attacks absolutely exploded. Okay, now in 2018, they are officially, utterly, totally mentally insane on absolutely everybody. Okay, which means that this is exactly the time to get emergency procedures against all of our, satanic pentagram star generals in the US and anywhere in the West, right? Because these guys are now beyond mentally insane, right? They are utterly, irretrievably, clinically insane. They are proper, full-on Nazis in extermination mode. And that's the point where we have an all-out situation, right? An all-out war situation where for the self-defense, right? And I'm just putting it out there. This is international freaking law. If you have this situation where the civilian population is being murdered by their own military, the civilian population has a right to self-defense, which means they have a right to kill their own military, to shut these psychopathic motherfuckers down. And I think we have pretty much reached it. I don't advocate anybody shooting these generals themselves by hand. I really advocate going to court just because then we can have a neat, tidy procedure, right? And then we can get all the others. That we can get the one second in command, third in command, fourth in command. We can get the entire architecture. But remember, these people are Nazis. They have got Nazi insignia everywhere. They behave like Nazis. They go after disabled people. They go after foreigners. They go after, homosexuals, ironically, because the top leadership is homosexual mostly. But anyway, they go after absolutely everybody. Okay. And it's really, truly insane. So what I wanted to say is, we have these guys identified. We have the evidence to actually try them. And now we absolutely have got to go to court, guys. Okay, this is very, very important that we now make the step to go to court. Now, in order to go to court, I have more and more people who are contacting me who want me to help them with their court case, who want me to maybe, you know, become submit an amicus brief or submit something like an expert testimony, or, you know, become a McKinsey friend of some form or another, or have some sort of expert support. And I hear you all, and I will do my absolute best for you all. But remember that I can't split myself and take on more court cases than even professional lawyers would take on at the same time. Okay? So we need to find a method whereby whatever I do to help one person can be translated to simultaneously help as many people as possible. Okay? And I'm telling you guys, this is now getting more and more urgent. It is incumbent on us victims to get our case into shape. Every single person who's ever suffered gang stalking or directed energy weapon attacks or is being tortured and neurotacked, it is incumbent on you personally to get your shit together. Now, one of the things I can tell you that is actually working amazingly and is really helping me as I'm writing up my own court case and helping others, it is the affidavit templates that have been submitted. And I'll show you why and how that can be used. Okay, so let me just bring this up. So for those of you who are new, let me just show you how you can get there. And also let me just throw a quick glance at the... Okay, so I just had a look at the chat, and that's great. So people are still engaged, you can still hear me. Now, let's go. So for all the victims, right, if you're not a victim, don't switch off, because there's a lot of insight about stuff that's probably being done to you as well. You just don't know it because it's not at the high intensity. But everybody is being gunned with directed energy weapons. You probably just know it under 5G or something. 5G is just a fixed version, you know, and a kind of like a camouflaged version of the directed energy weapons that the rest of us are being gunned with at very high intensity, okay? But you need to listen, because you will recognize the symptoms and you will recognize other stuff that maybe has been done to you. So everybody pay attention now, okay? So let me share my screen and let me show you the absolute power of these affidavit templates. So please, everybody, go to stop007.org, okay? Scroll down and click not on the first link, that's the form that you have to fill out if you haven't done so yet. Let's click on the second link, which is the returned, the already submitted affidavits. Now, this is a gold mine, okay? From the point of view of court cases, because, okay, so you've got this list of anonymous affidavits here, okay? And even though they are anonymous, they are under oath with a signed statement of truth, and the signature has been witnessed by somebody entitled to administer oaths. And this whole thing has been submitted to me with a photo ID. Now, these 4 conditions, which I testify to here, so I have to kind of keep the photo ID, of course, private in order to guarantee anonymity, but instead I've written this document where I sign that every single affidavit I upload has satisfied these 4 conditions to the best of my ability to assess this, okay? So all of these have been submitted under oath to the highest level of somebody testifying. These affidavits can be used in every single jurisdiction of the planet. Most certainly the Anglo-Saxon jurisdictions, but also all others, because the Anglo-Saxons cover, I think, 2/3 of the planet, and the rest accepts the same standard. Now, the thing is, if you want to prove something very particular that you have personally struggled with, now, things that I've struggled with personally is, for example, the fact that the police refuses to support me, refuses to investigate, refuses to protect me, refuses to do anything. In fact, the police is totally in on the genocide. They are in on the Nazi extermination program. If you want to prove that, you can just go through the list and look at the item where everybody of all of these people testified about the police denying them help. And I think it's something like 9 out of 10 cases. Okay. And there you have it. 90% of all the people are not helped by the police. Now, other people, at other points in the affidavit, you can go through and people testify about having a denial of help from lawyers or denial of help from doctors. Okay. And with these 14 cases I've already uploaded, you can already do well, it would be considered low statistics, but given that these cases are so highly complex and so specific, It's not actually just simple incidents counting that we're dealing with here. There are 14 mega cases testified to under oath, which are big, okay? And in all of those cases, we can prove that the police is in on it and the lawyers are in on it as well. They deny all help. And that is pretty amazing. Now, this could not have been proven before these affidavit templates in court to court standard, because most of the testimonies are what the court would call anecdotal evidence or hearsay evidence. So you have to understand how these courts work. If you have somebody, a witness, testifying to you, that's a very high standard. If they testify under oath, that's the highest standard. But if they also sign it with their signature witness, nobody can claim that it wasn't a person. And if they provide photo ID, that's it. That is the highest level of evidence that we have on the planet, okay? It's just short of somebody actually turning up in court in person with their photo ID, doing the oath right there before the court and testifying in person. Now, with thousands of victims all around the planet on different continents, we can't get everybody into court. So we get the one step down, which is the highest standard in writing. And those are these affidavits right here. Without these affidavits, what I would literally be forced to do is to submit to a court screenshots of tweets, printouts of emails, and maybe little quoted clips from YouTube videos to prove that many other victims are suffering the same thing as me. Okay, do you understand? Now, with that, that's not quite the same standard. If, however, you can go into court and whack a ginormous bundle this high with everybody testifying about all the offenses exactly the same way as in these affidavits, that's it. That is a proven fact beyond a shadow of a doubt. Okay? So what I'm telling you is if you go to this website with the international affidavits, you have my signature and my signed promise that every single one that I've uploaded there came with exactly all these. They came with the signed statement of truth, with the signature being witnessed by a person entitled to administer oaths, right, with a stamp in many cases, and it also came with photo ID. So what you do is you download my statement with my signature, and you download all the other affidavits, okay, and digitally, it's very easy to go through these PDFs. So you take one thing that you want to prove for your own case. This could be directed energy weapon gunning, gang stalking, housebreaking, the denial of help from police officers, and you have all the proof that you need to back you up, okay? And that's how we do this. So I just want you to know this, and I will also show you how to quote this stuff in detail, but you know, you can have an educated guess and quote this in your court file yourself, okay? So I just want you to be aware that we now have these 14 affidavits, and I want you all to be aware that I really need your victim affidavits if you want me to fight this in court successfully. With 14 statements, that's great, but I think if I look carefully, let me just take you back. So here at the very top, I've got a quick summary. I have got 8 from the US, 1 from Canada, 2 from the UK, 1 from Belgium, 1 Russia, 1 from Japan. Thank you very much to the person who testified, the first person from the Asian continent. And out of those, I have 6 male and 8 female. Now, the sex ratio is only important because there are body diagrams, and women are sometimes attacked differently to men because, for example, women's breasts would be gunned and stuff like that, okay? So that's why I want you to know how many affidavits that match your sex are there for you to download. But here, for example, if I want to go to court in the UK and I can only quote 2 affidavits, I mean, it's a start, okay, but I would rather have 10. So if you're a victim in the UK, please help me by filling this out, okay? Now, on the other hand, if you're in the US, you already have, so for North America, you already have 9 affidavits. And either way, this is a global targeted system. So really, all of us can use all 14. But still, for national courts, it is better to actually show affidavits from that particular country, okay? But from the English-speaking countries, there is no reason why I only have so few when there are thousands and thousands and thousands of victims out there. So what I'm trying to say to you is that you need to put your ass down on the tarmac and get going and fill this out, because no one is going to do the work for you. These criminals are not going to stop by themselves because they want you dead. And you have to be aware that in order to continue to live, you will have to fight for your life. Honestly, like I have to. You will have to fight in court for your right to just fucking continue existing on this planet, which maybe 5 years ago just came naturally to you. But it's not anymore, because we have psychopathic serial killers in NATO running amok and killing people en masse, following genocide plans of the global crime cartel. So please, guys, fill out the affidavit. Ticking boxes is really not too much to demand from anybody. Okay, so please get going. I hope I proved to you the power of these affidavits and why we actually need to have them in that particular format. Okay, so get going. Right, so I've got tons more I want to tell you about, but this was the important stuff. Okay, now the other thing I want to jump to, and I know this affects a lot of people, is the fact that my Twitter account has been shut down. Okay, so hang on, let me just go through. I talked to you about that. Yeah, Twitter, yes. Okay, so my Twitter account has been shut down. And what was quite lucky is that two people, one guy who has Masonic signaling and is actually a Mason, confessed to getting me shut down. And this is wonderful. The other one, the guy who confessed, I think, to being involved was, I think his name was Ryan Marino, and he is a toxicologist, an actual medical doctor in active practice in the US. And I have submitted a complaint about him to his employer because he ganged up on a medical student on Twitter and started abusing her on Twitter together with, I think, 2 nurses. Now, when you have 3 medical staff in active service gang up on a medical student, it is actually, you know, professional misconduct. And especially if that particular victim has suffered MKUltra style abuse, right, is trying to recover, is trying to regain her memories, and also is trying to use her freedom of speech. And actually, she was speaking up about the fact that vaccines are not what they're cracked up to be these days, not because of vaccination and immunization per se, but because these vaccines being loaded by other stuff for the purposes of genocide. So she was making a very important point. And then you have literally doctors and a doctor and nurses gang up on her and abuse her in the vilest, most proletarian way imaginable. And actually, I checked, and it was during working hours in the US. So I thought, hang on, you've got a working doctor during working hours abusing a medical student. Well, that, I think, calls for complaint. So I submitted a complaint to this guy's employer. And I said, look, what sort of staff do you have, right? I mean, would you actually want to be treated by a lawyer who you know is in his, you know, in his on his social media during his working time is abusing medical students, right? A bit freaky. So anyway, and this guy came forward after my Twitter was shut down and actually confessed to having contributed, right? Now, I find it very unusual that 2 people would take me down the same moment. So I'm pretty sure that these people are part of a ring. Okay, and again, nicely connecting the medical industry to the Masons. Okay, and they actually confessed to this. Now, I sent it to Twitter and I said, look, these complaints about harassment came from people who I haven't really addressed personally. I haven't been harassing one particular person on Twitter. I've been just complaining about the genocide, right? And putting out public outreach, and you shut me down. So Twitter hasn't responded. They have refused. They give you just always the same text of you're suspended, don't dare come back, we'll shut you down, you know, whatever. We just want you to disappear. Now, that is unfortunately not good enough anymore in the case where Twitter is not just a website and a little company anymore. Twitter is actually an infrastructure. As much as YouTube is, it is a public infrastructure. And the reason why that's the case, you can go to the Google PageRank, or sorry, not even the Google PageRank. It's called the Alexa rank in these days. The Alexa rank shows you what are the top websites that are being visited on the internet. I think Google is number 1, YouTube is number 2, and so on, and I think Twitter is number 10. Now, if you're one of the top 10 or top 15 or top 20 websites, and you just start excluding people willy-nilly, it is exactly the equivalent of having a motorway in a country, and suddenly they say black people can't use the motorway, or conservatives can't use the motorway, or if you're gay, you can't use the motorway, or if you're complaining about the genocide and us killing you, you can't use the motorway. So it means you can't get to places. You can't use what other people are using. Now, here in the European Union, this is discrimination, and we have got discrimination legislature against that, right? So what Twitter's doing is discrimination on fraudulent grounds and discarding my evidence of actually other people harassing me and shutting down my outreach work, which actually is in the interest of national security, because we do have, you know, a massive threat, an actual attack on national security right now. So anyway, but I just want you to know that the Twitter shutdown is in the works, and I'm saying it not just to bang my own drum about my own problems, but I want to tell you, should you have had Twitter problems, you know, with being shut down or suspended, I ask you to please print, you know, websites to PDF as evidence, take screenshots, and start putting them together as evidence of what exactly happened and why, what you did to appeal, and how you were rejected. I need all that evidence, and I need it very, very quickly. So get going, people, right? Because this is something that I want to raise in court, because I think I can prove that Twitter is part of the cartel companies, and this is why it's also taking part in organized crime and excluding people, okay? So I want your evidence from YouTube shutdowns. I want your evidence from Twitter shutdowns, and any other, and Facebook, of course, as well. All Facebook blocks and suspensions and all that. I want you to get that evidence into shape, please, and start with explaining what happened in numbered paragraphs and stick in the screenshots. And if you have websites as PDF, have them as an annex, have them as exhibits of evidence, okay? But again, you have to do that work, right? But I think there's a way for us to regain our Twitter accounts. And I also ask you to write to Twitter and write to YouTube and say that your tweets and your accounts and the type of followers and messages from followers and so on, they are all protected evidence. And they should be protected, should be preserved as part of upcoming litigation, potentially, okay? And all your YouTube videos, YouTube has to keep it on their servers. They should not delete it, so that you can prove what sort of material has been used as the basis for your shutdown, okay? So this is the reasoning behind it, okay? It is not acceptable to exclude people just, you know, based on fair enough statements that they make publicly. And even if these are private corporations do not have the right, most certainly nowhere in the European Union or Switzerland, to be discriminatory. And this has been tested in the UK all the way up to the Supreme Court in the case of, I think it was a Christian pair who ran a bed and breakfast. And they wanted to deny a double room to a male gay couple, okay? And this went all the way to the Supreme Court. And in the end, the Supreme Court said that you do not choose your sexual orientation, which you don't. And therefore, denying people a double room is a discrimination compared to heterosexual couples. And besides, it's not the, you know, the business of the bed and breakfast owners what people are doing in the bedroom they have rented, right? In any case, I mean, what, you know, the next thing would be Christians saying, okay, you can rent, you know, the double room, but you mustn't have anal sex because that got, you know, Sodom and Gomorrah burned to the ground. What? Right? So where does it stop? And it stops quite clearly, you know, with the discrimination legislation. So what Twitter and YouTube are doing, certainly here in Europe, is utterly unlawful. And I think we should go and raise that in court and have this shut down once and for all, have this nonsense shut down, okay? So, Twitter, but if you still want to follow me, and again, I say that for other victims to imitate, if you got shut down It's not the end of the world. Excuse me, my voice is going. It's not, do I have water? I probably don't, damn. But anyway, if you have been shut down, it's not the end of the world. There's things that we can do, okay? And actually, just give me a second. I've just discovered I've got a bottle of water over here. Yeah, okay. So what we can do is we can switch to other platforms, all right? And we need to switch to other platforms because we have set ourselves up to be very, very vulnerable to YouTube and Twitter nonsense. Okay, so I wanted to show you the alternatives that I am using. Okay, so let me just show you. Okay, so here's also my plan. Okay, I've got a secret plan, but shh. Okay, you mustn't speak about this. This is not omerta signaling. This is just like, guys, please don't tell anybody or we'll be shut down again. But I've got plans to sneak back on Twitter. Okay, and I will show you what I'm going to do. And I want you to, if you want to follow me, follow me right now. I'm going to use the JIT account, and the handle is called @JIT_update. Actually, that should be updates. Okay, let me just tweak it. It will be either JIT update or JIT updates. I'm just gonna, find the right handle, but it's this one here, okay? And this is the Joint Investigation Team account. And you can see that it wasn't really used. The last tweet being 28th of July, 2017, just because I had so much work and I couldn't keep it up, okay? But anyway, I will revive this. So if you want to follow me, please follow this account. So at the moment, this is @JIT_update. And then also, you can follow me on Gab, okay? And it's gab.com/stop007, okay? So please get on Gab. And if you're not on Gab, which you should be, you can follow me here on Twitter on this one. Now, also, you can follow me on Patreon, and it's patreon.com/stop007. It's always stop007, most of the time for most platforms. And I also thank for my 208 patrons. I'm so grateful to you guys. You're the only reason why I could afford to get a new laptop and get my work back on track. Without you, I would have been truly fucked. So thank you, thank you, thank you. And I hope to, do amazing work, hopefully the coming weeks, to really pay you back for all the investment. So I hope that you will see, your money's worth. I hope you're seeing your money's worth right now, to be honest, but I want to do a lot more. Now, the other thing is also, because I expect YouTube to mess me about, I started uploading all my videos from YouTube to BitChute. So if you go to bitchute.com/stop007, you will see my videos, and I have now uploaded, actually I started uploading in sequence my YouTube videos. So right now you can see the videos from 2 years ago. If you're curious, this is a quick way to have a look. You can just go here and actually see what it was like 2 years ago when I started. Actually, this is the Richie Allen show interview here. That I've uploaded again because Richie Allen has been shut down from YouTube as well. Okay, so you can find all this stuff here, but it's bitchute.com/stop007. Now, also, I started uploading my videos on Vimeo. And on Vimeo, it's again vimeo.com/stop007. I'm telling you now, guys, because I want you to bookmark these things so that if you're ever wondering what the hell just happened to me, where you can find out updates from me, it's these places. Okay, so Twitter, Gab, Patreon, BitChute, Vimeo, and then the other thing is the newest one is RuTube in Russia. RuTube is like YouTube, but for the Russian people. And I want to start bringing my videos there as well. Of course, I can't speak Russian, but I know that a lot of Russians can speak English and German. So I'm starting to upload my videos there, and I'm hoping to reach, the Russians as well, because I also believe that we have to, around the world, we have to come together and we have to shut this crime cartel down. Okay. If there were a Chinese platform, I would also put my videos there. But at the moment, I don't really know how to do that. But anyway, so, for those people who are Russian, you can just go there and find me on RuTube as well under Stop007. And for those people who are not Russian, you can still go to this video page. And if you use Chrome, you can translate the page. Just press a button, which on Chrome appears up here. for Google Translate, and the entire page will suddenly appear in your native language. Okay, so languages are not a barrier anymore, thank goodness. Okay, so that's what I wanted to tell you. This is how you can follow me. Okay, so I've told you about all of this. Now, the next item on the list, okay, let me just go through. Yes, I wanted to show you, I want to take you to Gab, and I want to show you a couple of things, okay? So what happened just before I traveled, sorry, it wasn't actually just before, it was a month ago, all right? So it was over a month ago. What happened at the beginning of April, okay, but I will explain why it was relevant recently. At the beginning of April, there was a news article in the Telegraph, okay, very, very important, which claimed, and I emphasize claimed, that, sorry, let me get rid of the cookies. It claimed that the son of the MI6 chief, Alex Younger, was killed in a car crash on a Scottish estate. I was just dumbstruck by this article at first, right? Because I thought, oh, what? What the hell happened? But this is a private Scottish estate, okay? So, of course, without having read the article, my first thought was, oh my God, was he ritually sacrificed? What the hell is this, right? And as this is what I thought just reading at the title. But then I know cartel signaling, and I just looked at this image and I was like, something just doesn't seem right, okay? And then I scrolled down, and sure enough, I found out what wasn't right, because this article was published on April Fool's Day, 1st of April 2019. Now, if you're the head of MI6, you would never, ever, ever, ever allow the death of your son to be announced on April Fool's Day. Like, never in a million years. Not, especially not given that MI6 and British intelligence control the British media. Okay? So when I saw this, I thought, that's bollocks. Okay? That is total bollocks. I'm sorry to say. And it's a case of, you know, the people who shouted wolf too many times, you know, and said, oh, you know, there was a terrorist attack. And every single time there was a so-called terrorist attack, we found out it was bullshit dreamt up by the intelligence agencies. So again, I'm looking at this and I'm thinking, no, this is bullshit dreamed up by the intelligence agencies. Okay, so I don't believe a word of this. And then I thought, okay, there's a very prominent image here, and let's see if we can see it in a different tab. Okay, now it's a big image, so there we are. Okay, and I thought, if this were cartel signaling, could I see obvious cartel signaling? And you note this, I have to tell you, the mountains here in the background are not in Britain. They're neither in Britain nor are they in Scotland. Okay, that's pretty sure. This is not Ben Nevis in the background. No way. This is somewhere, I would guess, you know, a place like Afghanistan or the Himalayas. Now, there's a clue to where this is, because here on the handlebars, you've got Tibetan prayer flags. Very prominent Tibetan prayer flags. Now, I don't think you would be traveling through Afghanistan with Tibetan prayer flags, but you might travel through Tibet. Okay, so in other words, we are somewhere in the Himalayas. The other thing, and remember how I said that cartel signaling, you should always start on the right, because the right is where most right-handed people look first. Now let's continue on the right. Do we see anything else unusual in this image? Well, just below the Tibetan prayer flags, you've got the word Avenger. Avenger on this bicycle. Now, this could be just coincidence if we weren't dealing with the intelligence agencies. Okay. Now, is there anything else you notice on this? If you look on this image, right, you've got this young man. And again, I apologize for being so insensitive. It's just a case that I actually think the good news is he isn't dead, right? I actually genuinely think that, because frankly, if somebody killed the son of the head of MI6, I think they would start a war or something, right? I don't think it would just go by like that. So I think the young man is alive and well. And I think this image has a clue to where he might be right now. So it's something to do with Tibet and the fact that, you know, Avenger, that he's an Avenger, or the mission is to avenge something. Okay, you also have this neck handkerchief, which is in the colors of red and white, you know, the two pharaonic colors. You've got a massive crest on his t-shirt, which could be just a company, right? But it looks like a rather swanky crest. So, you know, I'm not sure what label that is. And you've got the gang stalking glasses. Okay, so this is the image, right? And then when you read the article, you can find out more about the death and so on and so on. But the other thing is that there's further images about him. And it turns out, from what I'm reading, it turns out that he was rather sporty. Okay, so that's his dad, Alex Younger, the guy who human trafficked me to all these countries. And he is his son, you know, and many, many sporty shots. Now, he's also the university where he went, Dulwich College, and so on. But he was very sporty. Now, I think also this article emphasizes that he wasn't the eldest son. And it's right in the first sentence, Sam Younger, 22, who was the middle child of the intelligence chief. Okay, is claimed to have died in the early hours of Saturday morning on a private estate in Stirlingshire. Now, I think the 1st of April was a Monday. But you wouldn't really announce the death on the 1st of April, like never, ever, 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 ever. Okay, so that's bollocks. It's an April's Fool's joke here, right? But I think what it really means is that certainly this guy, you know, probably disappeared off the screen and will stay disappeared under his identity as this, you know, as the official son of Alex Younger. And if I had to guess, just skimming through where he might go during his, you know, absence, being, you know, incognito, I would guess he's going to the Himalayas. And funnily enough, the Himalayas is exactly where I had said a long, long time ago that the cartel is relocating to. Okay, if you want to find that, I was actually in the Techno Crime Fighters foray. I just want to show you the precise episode where you can check that I'm saying the truth. So Techno Crime Fighters. It's the episode that is flagged prominently with the Himalayan, the Tibetan prayer flags. This one here, number 17, The Truth About the Military. So if you look at, and here you can see these prayer flags, okay, because they're quite famous. So this was a year ago, right? So Techno Crime Fighters Forum 17, a year ago, I said that what is actually happening is that the crime cartel is relocating from Switzerland to the Himalayas because the Himalayas are bigger, more kick-ass version of Switzerland. More space for military bunkers now that Switzerland really looks like Swiss cheese, you know, and so on. So, you know, that is where the cartel is going, in my view. And lo and behold, right, here it is, the son of the chief of MI6 disappearing and by all, you know, signs, going to the Himalayas. And if I had to guess, I think he's being built up and trained as a super soldier because the chap is rather sporty, right? And my personal, rather snooty experience from Oxford is that the chaps who are very sporty don't tend to be that academic. So I think if your daddy is the head of MI6, your son needs some place in the organized crime architecture befitting of his status, right? And what better place for a sporty son than to train him to be a super duper soldier and send him off for terrorist training in the Himalayas. Okay, so I think this is what's going down here. Now, the reason this is relevant is because just before, I mean, remember, this says Avenger here, Himalaya, so Tibetan prayer flags, Avenger. And then just before I set off to drive by myself to Croatia from Switzerland, these Tibetan prayer flags appeared in the garden here outside the house. Okay, I was like, that, I mean, look how identical they look. I'm like, that, if that's coincidence that these Tibetan prayer flags were put up by, you know, the landlords just now, that is a striking bit of coincidence, I have to say. So genuinely, I was afraid of being killed on the motorway in an act of avenging, okay? But anyway, that aside, I just want to point out these things. The other thing I want to update you on is the case of Wednesday Kennedy. Now, or rather Gwen Kennedy. The thing is that Gwen Kennedy, she's still in the Holy Spirit Croydon, and unfortunately, Wednesday Kennedy lost her case in front of the NCAT tribunal. Okay, so her mother is still incarcerated in this place, held there against her will, right? And all her assets have been passed to, I think, the financial stewardship of her adopted son, who Wednesday thinks has actually kicked off this whole thing. Now, I'm only going to mention it briefly because I actually want to bring on Wednesday herself to update everybody on the case, but it is an ongoing case and we really need to help Wednesday, okay? This is the elderly trafficking case in Sydney, Australia, and elderly trafficking, or rather the systematic asset stripping and murder of elderly people in so-called care homes, is a problem worldwide. It's part of the global genocide. Okay, so I want you to know the current status quickly, but I'm gonna, you know, bring on a lot more detail, and you will hear a lot more about that. Okay, next news item. This is a good piece of news. I was actually featured in mainstream media 22 days ago, so over 3 weeks ago. An interview with me has appeared in Sputnik News. You can actually look at this. And Sputnik News interviewed me a very, very last minute. And what happened is that I did an interview with them for their radio show in Edinburgh, which they say they broadcast. But this interview also appears down here as an audio file at the end of the article. Okay, so you can listen to this, and this is pretty big because the first time that I'm actually featured in mainstream media, even though I already had an interview by RT, which then RT deleted. I had an interview with Watching the Hawks, Sean Stone, Watching the Hawks, and RT deleted that video, that recording. So it wasn't broadcast. Sputnik itself, right, last year, in January of 2018, also did an interview with me, which was 1 hour long, and you can actually see it here. Sorry to open old wounds, but it's important. So on my website, you can go to, if you go to /home/black-lists, or blacklist/journalists, you can see the Journalists Hall of Shame. And here you can see all the shenanigans with the press, a very long list here, right? But if you go to the UK, Sputnik News UK, on the 6th of January 2018, did a very long interview with me, which you can listen to here, because I have recorded it and I have broadcast it, but then they pulled it again. So in 2018, Sputnik News, I think from pressure from above, pulled the interview they had already recorded with me. And I'm pleased to say that Sputnik News in 2019 now broadcast the interview on mainstream media. Hooray! Hooray! The problem is this one is still just 5 minutes, whereas the thing that they recorded with me over here is like, I think, an hour long or something like that. Yes, it's 1 hour long, so you can listen to it here. All right. So instead of 1 hour, you only get 5 minutes, but hey, you can listen to the full 1 hour here and rejoice and quote the mainstream article now here. The occasion for the interview was that the Five Eyes are staging a big participating, that's what I meant to say. They are staging false flag attacks, and they are participating in, in these meetings. So they were participating in a conference in the United Kingdom, and Sputnik News wanted my opinion about you know, the Five Eyes. Well, yeah, my opinion. I mean, I've got a very strong opinion, but my opinion and what is borne out by the facts is that the Five Eyes are conducting a genocide across their territory. Okay, they are war criminals, and also they're human traffickers, right? And they're also one big global organized crime cartel. That's the truth about the Five Eyes. Now, unfortunately, because it was my first, you know, appearance on mainstream media, I couldn't quite get all that in. I didn't actually say the Five Eyes are conducting a worldwide genocide. I just couldn't. I told the journalist ahead of time that this is what I wanted to say, but in the 5 minutes of the interview, I just had to tone it down, okay? I was so scared that this time it will be pulled again. I just toned it down, and what I said is that whatever these Five Eyes people are saying on that conference will be pathological lying. And I think still, that's the first time that the mainstream media is broadcasting that the Five Eyes are pathological liars. Okay, so, okay, we're getting there, guys. We're getting there slowly, slowly, slowly. So, you know, that's the best thing I could do at the time. So just bear with me. And but what you can do is you can quote that article and you can show it to friends and family and so on. And it was really funny, actually, because after the interview, the journalist said, okay, and I'm going to let you know when it's broadcast and I'll send you a link. Of course, he didn't. Okay, he didn't. So I thought, okay, I know what happened. Sputnik took the piss again, and then they pulled it, right? So that's not going to be broadcast. And he told me it's actually for the radio show. So I was expecting a radio broadcast or something, maybe, you know, appearing somewhere as a podcast. So I'd forgotten about it. And I was actually just Googling something else entirely about the Five Eyes. And suddenly there's this news ticker, you know, which was just, I will show you how it appears because it was hilarious. Okay, I was actually taken by complete surprise. What happened is that I click on this link, and in Google, it appeared as Five Eyes came out of the dark due to organizations like WikiLeaks, security expert. You know, this is the title that Google showed me. And I was like, thank goodness. Somebody actually said that, okay? Somebody actually said that we can thank WikiLeaks for this. And I was thinking, security expert, they must be talking about Bill Binney. So I was like, oh, wow, you know, he actually said that. He actually said that. So I click on this article, and then I scroll down, and then the first line reads, experts from the so-called Five Eyes group, which was an almost entirely secret group made up of the US, UK, Canada, Australia, and New Zealand, sharing information with each other, are set to appear together for the first time in the UK to discuss global cyber threats. Sputnik has discussed the alliance with security expert Dr. Katherine Horton. I was like, what? This is me. You're quoting me. How the hell can that be? And then I was thinking, I'm now called a security expert. I mean, this is really hilarious. Okay, so like, okay, this is how one gets from being a particle physicist to a Holocaust victim to security expert, right? Because you put in years of work, and you've got more an idea of what needs to be done for national security than these bastards, right, who are appearing at the conference. So anyway, that was really funny. It took me by total surprise, a pleasant surprise. But I think what this shows is that the dam has broken. I really think that so far there has been a government hold on media outlets, and now they cannot keep it back anymore. There's just too much out there. The court cases are rolling in, and now every media outlet is engaged in an ass covering operation because they know that people like me will take them to court for covering up a genocide. So I think Sputnik News really got the message when I was massively pissed off about them pulling, you know, because I invested 2 hours and my entire credentials to give them a good interview, and then they pull it. So I was massively pissed off, and I've been, you know, ranting about them for a long time and what they did. And I think they got the message. They're like, oh shit, okay, we're in the first line of fire, but we're also the first ones to get out through the door if we get this right. And I think they're absolutely right about that. So now with the second interview, now that I can actually see people, genuine journalists, genuinely giving me the, you know, airspace and allowing me to say whatever I want, I'm fine with them now. So I'm going to take Sputnik News off my to be charged in court list, right? But who remain on the to be charged in court list are Private Eye, The Guardian, The Telegraph, The Times, The Independent, and a bunch of others, right? So that's good on Sputnik News. And I really encourage other media outlets to get the message, to get that this is not a joke, and that there will be financial liabilities, which in principle could be so severe to shut them down forever. Because this is a live genocide. If you don't report about the mass murder of your compatriots, then you're not a fit news organization. You're actually, again, engaged in discrimination that is unlawful in Europe. And when it's discrimination with, you know, a lethal outcome for the victims, you're in deep shit. Okay? So anyway, I just wanted to tell you about this Sputnik News thing. That's another thing I can tick off now. The other thing I want to show you, which is also, I mean, really horrific, actually. It is just, but it's good that it has come out, because again, we can use it to prove it in court. Okay, this is also on my Gab. So if you want the links, you just go to gab.com/stop007. The other thing that really rocked my world was this interview here. Okay. And this is, I think the investigators, I think I stated who they were in one of these tweets where it's included. Oh yes, it's this is an investigative film which was made by the Center for Medical Progress. Okay, they did an undercover reportage, which I encourage you to listen to in great detail, where they actually recorded the heads of the one of them is Planned Parenthood, the other one is the consortium of abortion providers, right? And you've got all these like leadership women openly discussing the trafficking of human bodies, of babies, okay, and of human body parts. And what they are doing is that they are taking aborted fetuses and they are selling them for body parts, okay? And you just have to listen to this, because this is so shocking. It is just disgusting beyond measure. And I have to say, I personally consider every single one of these women who appear here to be highly psychopathic. I think they have been handpicked to be batshit crazy, because no woman in her right mind would ever do something to babies, you know, than what these women are doing. It's absolutely shocking. Sorry, this was an alarm, a reminder for me. So I really encourage you. And one of the things that's a telltale sign is that this woman here, who appears here, there's one scene where she is telling another woman about, you know, what they can and cannot do. And her major concern is not that this is highly illegal and human trafficking. Her major concern is, oh, I hope I didn't discourage this woman. I hope I came across that, you know, I said to her that it's okay to do that. And for me, that was, you know, one of the most shocking and disgusting moments in this film, when you actually see this psychopath, and at some point she like distorts her face in a, you know, in a kind of like, you can see that she's really worried, and she's like, you know, she just talked to this woman, this other woman, about human trafficking and selling off body parts of babies. And then she says, okay, but we have to be really careful, because if this were known, there would be a public outcry and so on. And then this woman goes, and then, you know, this other woman turns to the investigators and just goes like, And then at first I thought, oh my God, does she have the first bout of remorse maybe? And then she says suddenly, oh, I'm really concerned now. I hope I came across that it's okay. I hope I got the message across that it's okay, but she just has to be careful. And I was like, oh my God, no, there's no remorse, because she's a fucking psychopath. There is no remorse in psychopaths. She was just worried for her job and thinking, oh, if I was too discouraging, I damaged the industry. It's like, I was just sitting there thinking, I can't believe this. I mean, I have seen my share of psychopaths in action, and every single time it just takes my breath away, really. So that is it. And the other thing I want to say about that is that the entire industry of the sale of baby parts, and by the way, there were also quotes like one woman who's actually also conducting abortions saying to these undercover investigators, well, you know, if I get an order and I know that livers are very, very precious, like very highly valuable to the customers, then when I abort a baby, I would just kind of squash the fetus above and below, but not the organ that they want. I'm like, you are talking about human murder. You are talking about premeditated human murder, and already in the process of murder, you've already put a price on that human and its organs and its body parts, and you are killing with profit in mind. At what stage in our fucked up planet did this become legal? Because I'm pretty sure it's not. Okay, I'm pretty sure it's not. And the other question that really arose in me is, what the fuck happened to the duty of, not just the right, the duty of a rightful burial? So you have these women who literally wait so long making up their fucking minds, because the abortion limit is like 6 fucking months. You had half a year to make up your mind, woman. I'm not talking about, oh my God, I just slept with this guy and the condom broke and then a week later I found out I'm pregnant sort of cases. I'm talking about people who've been running around with little ready-made humans about to pop out in them. Okay? So after 6 months, it suddenly occurred to you, shit, I don't want this baby. I don't want this little human. Right? Are you fucking nuts, women? Are you really fucking batshit crazy? You stupid bitches. I think I'm okay to say that as a woman, okay? So, you know, this is totally nuts. So the legal abortion limit is already egregious, okay? If you take months and months and months to make up your mind if you want to kill that human life or not, right? At some point, it becomes massively shocking because you're running around with an actual little human in you, right? Fully formed. I'm not talking about the stage where, you know, not even, anatomists could distinguish it from a chicken embryo because it's so small and underdeveloped. No, we're talking about little humans with a liver, with a brain, who are moving around, who've got a heartbeat, who've got a life of their own. They're just still on life support because they still need a bit of energy and become bigger and become strong. And then I'm thinking, okay, you're a woman who decided at that fucking late stage that you don't want that kid. Okay, right? And by the way, I mean, the entire process of abortion is just as traumatic as giving birth. But okay, fine. You do that, and then you don't really think, oh, but I've just killed a human being, I should bury it. You literally just like, what, you walk out of the fucking clinic and it's like having your appendix taken out. It's like, oh God, that's organ matter. I'm not going to take it home, am I? Right? And you literally have women so fucked in the head that they kill a human and they leave their own child in a fucking abortion clinic to be thrown into a bin. All right. So this is massively illegal. Okay. Now, I'm making a big deal out of this because I want to show you it's not just these fucking human traffickers at the end, these psychopathic bitches that you can see in this investigative, report. It's the fucked in the head psychopathic bitches who just literally discard their baby into a bin. Right? Now, the entire reason why this human trafficking, organ trafficking operation exists is because those women don't grant their babies the right to a decent, dignified human burial after having had them murdered. If they said, right, well, I'm coming into the abortion clinic, but I brought my little baby coffin, and I want you to put my baby in there after you killed it, and then I'm going to take it to a, burial company to have it buried, and I'm going to have my family come and actually have a little, ceremony, this wouldn't happen. Because you would see the baby, it would be dead, and you could check that nobody cut it open, gouged its eyes out, and took out all the inner organs, which is exactly what's happening right now, right? So the duty of a rightful burial, the right of a rightful burial, went out of the window to enable this human trafficking, and both the psychopathic bitches and the psychopathic bitches to allow it to happen are responsible for this. Okay? But nevertheless, the human being you created has rights of its own, right? And I really think that it's not the case that you can just, you know, take the baby and then just take out all the parts as if it was an old car taken to a junkyard. All right. And the reason, if you're a total self-interested psychopathic bitch that you can't see this point, I've got news for you. Because those human body parts taken out and used for human experimentation will be used to develop bioweapons and develop warfare technology to kill you, fucked up cunt. Okay? And that's how it comes full circle. And actually, in a certain sense, evil cancels evil, right? But really, are we going to have this sort of shit in our society? And the other thing that you can see in this investigative report is that all the human experimentation, human trafficking and organ trafficking is totally unregulated, because it's precisely the supposed regulators and heads of the what's it called, like the industry, taking part in it and making huge profit from it. Okay, so that just really, you know, blew my mind. Absolutely. But it's, you know, it's a breaking news that we have this evidence. And I'm telling you, the human trafficking and human body parts and little humans connects up directly, but 100% directly, like so, to the human trafficking of grown-up big humans and the implanting, the biorobotization, the neurological experimentation and all that. Okay. Because you can also take babies' brains and then find out how to control big human brains, okay? So if you are a targeted individual and you don't like the human experimentation done to you, well, what's being done to you is being, you know, done to young humans as well. So you need to care about the children, you need to care about the babies, and you need to care about the fetuses, because all of us, we're part of the same global crime cartel's human trafficking operation. So thankfully, one part of this was uncovered. Now, I have to say, I have such a massive bunch of other news to tell you, okay? Massive news, but I don't have time. And tonight, there's already another interview queued up, which is, it's either today, hopefully it happens today, if not tomorrow. It's the interview with Kevin Annett, okay? Because Kevin Annett has also undergone crazy stuff happened to him. And what I will do now is I will terminate the broadcast. I invite you all to come back on later on if you want to hear Kevin Annett's update, because it's a total bombshell what happened to him. And, you know, we should ask him directly what has been going on. And then I will either come back on tomorrow or on Monday, and I'll give you all the other updates, because there's so much more to tell you, so much more. But anyway, so these are the, you know, kind of creepy yet good news and other news that I have time to talk about today. Thank you so much for listening. All of you investigators, keep going, because we know much more now than we even did 2 or 3 months ago, and the whole thing is coming apart. And then in the second episode, I will give you much more evidence about what is going on in the world and all the developments. Okay, so there's a lot, really a lot happening, and the entire global organized crime cartel is literally just shearing apart, and we all need to descend down on them like a pack of hounds, you know. So all investigators, all the victims. But anyway, this is what I wanted to say today. Thank you so much for listening. I'm sorry about the whirring of the fan, if you heard it. I'm sorry about my voice going. But hopefully tomorrow will be better. And in the meantime, all you victims, stick in there, because now really we're at the heat of the war, but we can already see the end of the war. It's already in sight. And you need to be the strongest, the most proactive you have ever been. Okay, so get going, writing your cases. Also, I should say, please subscribe. If you hit the subscribe button down there and the little bell next to the subscribe button, you should be, or maybe it's on that side for you. I don't know which way around the screen shows me, but click on the subscribe, click on the little bell so that you get notifications about all the updates, because over the coming days and weeks, there will be a lot of important information, you know, being made public. And I hope to bring some of that to you. So anyway, that's it for now. And take care. Have a good Saturday afternoon. Enjoy your weekend and use your weekend to write your affidavits. Okay, write your affidavits because we need them. Anyway, bye for now and talk to you soon.